The first thing that makes TNA unique is the way we've designed the schedule to be kid-friendly. We are trying to instill in our kids that the classroom is not the only place you can learn. And so that could be taking class to our classroom in the woods that we call the Rockatorium, or just doing math up on the hill under some trees, taking the learning outside, either because what you're learning about is more visible and obvious there, or because it's just a great day and why not read and write outside. Those sorts of learning experiences are really powerful for kids who struggle in a traditional setting. It makes learning so much fun for kids and makes them want to go to school. And maybe that's why we have such happy students.
That's Jay Renfro, the founder and executive director of the Tennessee Nature Academy, a free nature-based public charter school in the Southeast Nashville community. Inspired by his own love for nature, Jay shares their mission to cultivate a happy and healthy young people who are knowledgeable about the world, passionate about the outdoors, and motivated to do good work. Jay is an experienced educator who, before founding Tennessee Nature Academy, served in multiple schools in the Nashville area. My name is Scott Campbell, and I'm the executive director of the Nashville Incubator. And you're listening to Back to the Whiteboard, a podcast featuring conversations with innovative leaders in the education reform space. You can learn more about the Nashville Incubator and get involved at tnincubator.org. Excited to have Jay Renfro, the executive director of the Tennessee Nature Academy, here with me today. Welcome, Jay.
Thank you. It's always fun to be in the waking world and realize not everybody is at school all the time.
And we have coffee or coffee mugs. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to just start with really trying to understand the problem you were trying to solve when you created this amazing school, Tennessee Nature Academy. So why don't we start there? What problem were you trying to solve with this school?
So we started at the end of COVID. And so it's easy to think of the climate that COVID had created, but the problem actually existed before the COVID school closures. All teachers try to connect with their students and bring their identity into the classroom. And so when I was doing that, I'm an outdoorsy person, more comfortable with my shoes off, walking around outside. And I wanted to bring that identity of bring the outdoors inside the classroom. But I realized there was a disconnect with my students in how connected or not connected they were with the outdoors. And that was especially exaggerated with students of color, either because there were perceived barriers about who belongs in the outdoors or actual barriers to green space or a wooded, place to do free play with your friends after school. And so realizing that my students were not connected to the outdoors, I started programs within a school that got them reconnected to the outdoors or connected for the first time. And so that could be camping or hiking or growing pumpkins. And that program grew in popularity to where it became clear that it needed to be something that every kid had as a part of their daily school day, not just something some kids got to do for like an hour so a day. And so that was what we were trying to do, is let's reconnect kids to the outdoors and let's bring this like activity, this just like cadence where you're experiencing nature. Let's bring that into the rhythm of a school day, which it really belongs. It's a part of a kid's education. You don't have to teach them how to play and love the outdoors. They quickly figure that out for themselves. And then COVID shutdowns happened. Kids spent a year sitting at home, not socializing, not playing. And so there was this big gap of childhood that kids lost, where that like school is fun and I love to learn and I love to play with my friends part of elementary school was missing because they didn't get to do that. And then when they did go back, there was just this stressful climate. And so then we entered the stage and have Tennessee Nature Academy, where kids can... I was going to say a place where kids can be a kid, but I think that's trademarked by somebody. I don't know if that's Chuck E. Cheese or IKEA. I forget where.
So you were just, as a teacher, you were just bringing kids out. They were planting pumpkins. You were doing camping trips. What else were you doing with students while you were just a teacher?
So it started with a former school leader who allowed me to take a group with another adult, but we took a group of 10 students into the woods for 5 days. No running water, no electricity, nothing. That was in 2015. So that was 9 years ago. Yeah. Some of those they were eighth graders then. They're now like graduated from college or like pursuing careers. They're young adults and they're still friends with each other, and they still like have that relationship with me where they'll stop by my house. And so I use that anecdote because there was something powerful that happened where it connected this group of diverse and incredibly goofy kids and adults. And something about that experience really stuck. And wanting to kind of not replicate that, but building off that momentum, those kids actually asked, hey, can we do something like a little bit more meaningful and impactful, like purposeful than just camping, though that's fun. And so they actually came up with the idea of growing pumpkins, and we had never grown pumpkins before. So it really was this like adults and students figuring this out and like learning and working and making mistakes. Like we lost a bunch to some fungus, but then we realized that like milk got rid of the fungus. Like a kid found that out by doing some research. And so there was just this cool like community of learning and playing, but all centered around the outdoors and like being outside of a school, but having like really solid relationships and really cool like learning experiences and work experiences. And so that was really a springboard for like our school model. We have time for adults and students to work together towards some problem, whether it's like building a giant clay oven or learning how to make paper or like creating a comic book or something. Just there's something cool about adults and kids working together to solve some sort of problem or even just to make some kind of product. Like that makes school fun. That like makes learning really fun in a way too.
Well, let's jump. I mean, that's a big jump to go from like five kids that you go spend time out in the woods and even growing pumpkins to running a school right now, 300 students, eventually is going to have 800 students. And so you have to actually do school in the midst of that. So like, tell me a little bit more about like kind of the elements of your school and, you know, how do you weave the nature into and the learning and those experiences into still having to teach them math, science, English, social studies, fill in the blank.
Yeah, because we are a public charter school, so we're held accountable in all the ways that schools across the state of Tennessee are held accountable. So we have math class, we have science class, we have ELA class, we have social studies class, we have a special education department for students with disabilities, we have multilingual learners who need language support. So we have the gamut of all the academic programming that you would see at go down the street and fill in the blank with whatever school. Mm-hmm. So what makes it different? We're Tennessee Nature Academy. The first thing is their schedule, their daily schedule. We have an extended school day. Our school days are on average an hour longer than a normal school day, and that accounts for a lot of different time where kids stop what they're doing and go outside and play. We borrowed this from, I've never been to Finland, but what I've read and heard about the schools is that for every hour of school, there may be 10 minutes of outside playtime where the kids run outside. And this is Finland. Like it gets cold up there, colder than it gets here.
I've heard.
Again, I've never been. But they do that consistently. And that's one of the things that they attribute to their student performance and their student health. And so we've adopted that mindset of students will have class for 65 minutes and then the doors open and the kids run outside and they have 15 minutes to play. And we don't have, playground rules of you have to do this or this or this. It really is letting kids create their own games and just it's their time. They get to go into kid world. And so like it just rained. So a popular thing is getting muddy and messy in the creek and seeing what's in there. We found a tire somewhere, and so of course kids made a tire swing. So it's like a little throwback to like old Americana. But and then we say time to come in, and the kids come running in, and they track mud in with them. And some of the stragglers are always a little bit late, and we have to have those talks of promptness. But then they go back to class and they focus on whatever their next class is, and then they know that at the end of that class they'll get to go outside again. So the first thing that makes TNA unique is the way we've designed the schedule to be kid friendly, and students, especially students who are more active. And so we're attracting a lot of students with ADHD. This is a model that really, really works for them because kids can focus for something that's interesting, but sometimes they just need that break. And so to have that break, to have that exposure to the outdoors, like we know this is good for kids. The second way that we're unique is with our learning environment. So we have enough indoor space for all students at all times, because sometimes the weather is not super ideal for extended writing or reading assignments. But we are trying to instill in our kids that the classroom is not the only place you can learn. And so that could be taking class to our classroom in the woods that we call the Rockatorium, or just doing math up on the hill under some trees. We have all these fun names for places on campus, like the Shady Grove and the Big Hill, and, all that good stuff, the Goat Courtyard, all that good stuff. And so taking the learning outside, either because what you're learning about is more visible and obvious there, or because it's just a great day, and why not read and write outside? We do at least one big field trip for each grade every quarter, and that comes with the obligation and expectation of field work. So we're not just going to the zoo or to the Parthenon to run around, though we do plenty of that, but there's also, it's integrated into what they're learning about an ELA or history or science. And so they're actually doing assignments at the zoo because it's a great place to look at animal behavior and habitats. Or they're doing assignments at the Parthenon because, behold, there's some ancient Greek architecture right there in front of your eyes. And so those sorts of learning experiences, again, are really powerful for kids who struggle in a traditional setting. So then the third way that we're unique is with our curriculum. We value projects. We value inquiry. We have to take the state test at the end of the year, and we do plenty good on those. We also think learning is important to kind of reach outside what the state requirements are and see how what you're learning in the class is connected to the real world. So that could involve doing some work on a farm. It could involve some sort of performance task where you have to, for example, build a golf course to reflect Newtonian physics and friction and resistance and acceleration and all that kind of stuff. Again, makes learning so much fun for kids and makes them want to go to school. And maybe that's why we have such happy students.
And I've seen it. I've seen them run out of the classroom.
It's a stampede.
They are fast,
and
they are joyful when they go out and when they come back in. So it's really a kind of a beautiful thing to see in person. Now, Rockatorium, you mentioned that. You've done a lot of innovative instruction experiences in the Rockatorium in the middle of the woods. Tell me more about that.
So it's nothing more than a bunch of rocks. I think when they were excavating the land that the school's built on, like 40 years ago, they dumped a bunch of giant boulders they blasted, and the forest has grown up around them. We think that's the backstory of the Rockatorium. There's also a crashed and burnt out golf cart down there, so who knows? But it holds a bit of a mystique to the kids. And so going to the Rockatorium is a fun adventure. It's about a 5-minute walk through the woods, and kids have to, bring your book, bring your journal, bring your pencil. We're heading to the Rockatorium. And so they go out there, and it's a place where they can sit in chairs. They can kind of climb and scamper up on the rocks, find a nice, comfortable spot, and do their reading and writing assignment. And different teachers use it for different ways of instruction. For example, our 5th grade ELA teacher, in quarter 2, they read a book called, I think it's called The Most Beautiful Roof in the World. It's about the rainforest, and it's their unit on figurative language. And so the most beautiful roof in the world being a metaphor for the rainforest. And so there's no better place to read certain parts of that book than sitting in a forest looking up at the roof that's above you, the canopy. And so that's a great spot for them to do their writing and reflecting on the imagery and the use of different shades of green and all that kind of stuff. It's more powerful to read about it when you're in a forest than to read about it and you look up and see fluorescent lights and you're just trying to imagine what it's like. And so that's one way, for example, that it's been used.
I love it. So part of our goal here is to think about innovation and, how you got to something. And you talked about sort of your personal story and experience in this, but who's inspiring you and who sort of inspired some of the decisions and plays that you made in this model? I know you mentioned Finland as one example. Who else is doing what you're doing in the United States or elsewhere in a really interesting or meaningful way?
Well, I have to say my wife, Maddie, will tell you that she told me that this needed to be a school 5 years before we started. So I had to say that.
We'll give her the credit, yes.
Because credit's due.
Yeah.
In the public school sector, a model like this is very hard to find. It's something we know is good for all kids. taking kids outside is not expensive. It's not like we're building a robotics program and we really need to like have all these startup costs. But strangely, when we were looking at different schools that had this model, they were mostly private schools or homeschool tutorials, schools that kids would pay lots of money to attend. But just for public school people who either can't afford private school or want to attend like a neighborhood school. Maybe they're a student with disabilities and they need that support that's provided at a public school. The models just, they don't exist. We're nature-based. We're also diverse by design, which means we recognize Nashville has a history of school segregation that persists today, even. Schools are not really any more integrated than they were 50, 60 years ago. TNA, however, is. We're diverse and integrated. And so there's something neat about our school model that is drawing families together. And it wouldn't be able to do that if it were not a public charter school. And so is there another nature-based, diverse by design charter school out there? We haven't found it yet. We'd love to be in coalition. There are a lot of other nature-based schools and even public schools that will have nature-based programming. There's one in Chattanooga, for example. There's one up in Connecticut that we've it's been great to visit them and learn from them. But each unique context comes with its unique challenges or like I said, context. And so ours being really the only diverse by design nature-based public charter school around, we are taking what we can learn from other schools and Frankensteining it together to create this kind of one-of-a-kind school that we have.
I love it. Well, let's dig in there, like to understand what are the problems that you're trying to solve next, right? So you've opened the school, you now have 3 grades. Students and families who are happy and are learning, but like what are sort of what's the next problem that you're solving, or what are you hoping to learn in this year ahead as you're continuing to grow? Yeah,
so something that I wouldn't call it necessarily a problem, as just a reality that we're like leaning into. Our student body has a higher number of students with disabilities than the zoned public schools. Those are typically like 12 to 14. We're looking at more 22%, with ADHD populations being high, a lot of fantastic autistic students who our model's just perfect for. And so knowing that, we really want to lean into, okay, so these families and these students are thriving here. What does that tell us about teaching and learning as a whole? That's good for all kids. But then also, what is it telling us about teaching and learning for neurodivergent kids, and how we can really like buff up those parts of the program so that those students are thriving. And so we've been able to see, leaning into just the activity and leaning into the hands-on learning and leaning into just embracing that like joyful school is not a scary place mentality has been awesome for kids where school has been scary because they haven't been successful. So that's the first thing that we really want to give a lot of attention to is our students with disabilities. The second thing is we're growing into a high school. I don't know if I'm most excited about it, but we have some really neat things on the horizon for our high school. In the middle school, there's a lot of play-based learning because that's how kids engage and understand the world, is through their play. And so this time of playing and the workshop block we have at the end, where they get to kind of play with some sort of problem with their friends and their teachers, that's going to transform into some really cool work-based learning applications in high school. Teenagers are less likely to, build forts and have that imagination, but they are still doing some identity searching. And that identity searching becomes a lot of fun when they can make money while they do it. And there's no reason why high schoolers shouldn't be able to leave for part of the day to apprentice or to try out a job they want. And that's what we want. We don't want to send them to college and say, all right, figure out what you want to do. We want them to try on, just how like a middle schooler might try on different roles while they're playing imagination or make-believe. A high schooler wants to try on different identities. Am I someone who works with my hands? Let me try that. Did I like that? Am I somebody who is an entrepreneur and wants to work on the budget and the business model? Well, try that. Did you like that? Like, do you like doing creative work? Do you like doing like personable social work? What are the things you think you might like let's try it out either around the school campus or in the community at large. So that's what I'm really excited for. We're adding our 8th grade next year, then our high school to come. And so we'll of course have the required academics that a high school has, and the college prep, the AP classes, all that stuff. But we'll also give opportunity for the important work-based elements, which I don't think are really captured in schools as much as they need to be.
And with that growth, which is really exciting, you're going to be moving into a new space in the next couple of years.
Oh, yeah.
Like, just tell me about the new campus and how the campus itself is going to kind of create these experiences for students.
So yeah, that's should have answered. That's a big project.
That's number 3. You gave me 1, 2.
Number 3.
Yeah.
So we were donated 23 acres in Nashville, which is incredibly humbling thing to be the recipient of. And so we have this unique position where we get to design our ideal school and build it from the ground up. This campus backs to 300 acres of city parkland. So it's just this perfect future home for TNA. As we're talking right now, we plan to be at our incubator spot the following year, and then the first phase of the campus will be ready for us to move into that year. Maybe a mid-year move. Who knows? Construction schedules. But we'll have traditional learning spaces like you would expect, but we'll also have a schoolyard farm. Like, kids can actually learn how to manage the CSA box, the community sourced agriculture program, whether it's from the work with your hands, help harvest the crops, or whether it's from the let's plan out what goes in each box and the pricing and how we're going to, source these ingredients and source these ingredients. And so there's a lot of really neat opportunities for kids to plug in to work that will really matter. And that all starts from how we plan to use our campus, not just as a traditional school where you learn academically and then you leave, but a place where the community can come together and food can be grown, food can be eaten, animals can be taken care of, all that really neat stuff that is a part of our model.
It's fun.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of go back. We talked a little bit about some of the models that you found and you're inspired by in Finland. And just talk about your theory of education. And like, if it's a book that really inspired you to how you teach, how you educate, how you lead. Yeah, just want to hear more about that.
Yeah, so I remember where I went to college, it had this sign over the library, and it said something like welcome to the world of information. And my friends and I would always talk about how really it needs to just say welcome to the world of formation, because that's kind of aligns with our ethos. And I was a part of a classics program, so we were nerd about, all that good stuff. But a huge part of secondary education is the formation of the young people who are in the building. And so you, of course, have... they are formed by what they learn, but they're also formed by the habits. And you can teach them almost as much with the way that you teach than the actual content that you teach. Like everywhere teaches the content, but people will teach in radically different ways. And so the way that we are teaching students, we want to form them into certain kind of individuals. And so that, just thinking of like you just said like philosophy or our ethos of education. It's recognizing that every situation is a formative experience for young people. Even when, like, let's look at discipline. Some schools may look at discipline as like you follow these rules or else because we've got to have these rules, but they're learning opportunities for kids. And when a kid makes a mistake, and they make mistakes, and you want them to make mistakes because there's a lot of learning through those mistakes and through those conversations. And the way that you handle that will form kids into certain kinds of citizens, which is one of our goals as a school. And so we use a framework that's rooted in positive psychology. It has a huge gamut of character strengths. There's 24 different character strengths, and that accounts for a lot of different cultures, a lot of different family values, whether that's rooted in religion or different, their upbringings, whatever it is. But with 24 different character strengths, it's not our responsibility to say a good person or, we want someone who is integrity and perseverance and grit and these 5 things. But we really broaden it to say like humor is important. appreciation of beauty is important. The character strength of the week at school right now is prudence. Well, middle schoolers talk about prudence. But it's important to have those conversations. And what we want to help students do is identify there's always 3 to 5 to 6 character strengths that resonate with each individual, and like celebrate those and like teach them to like leverage those. Like those are your strengths. Like use those, carry them with you for the rest of your life. And so that's like character formation, which is a big part of the overall formation.
Love it.
Yeah.
Paint me a picture of one of your favorite moments in leading the school over these past couple of years.
We did a field trip last year to see the solar eclipse. And that's one of like, not just my favorite moments of leading the school, but like one of my favorite moments ever. We saw that there was a solar eclipse coming. And so we took 3 coach buses, 3 hours up to Carbondale, Illinois, Giant City State Park, and we watched the solar eclipse. And I had never seen one before, but there was just this awesome moment of everybody, like it literally, like I recorded the video and I just remember shouting out like how amazing it was, but it was also just really heartwarming to see all of these young people enjoying this with all of their parents and realizing that like this community, it's just the beginning of it. You know, what happened that weekend was a lot of families came up early and they camped out. They like cooked around fires together. They went like on night walks. It's a great place to forage for mushrooms. And to have a diverse and integrated community, like having such an epic adventure, like I will never forget that. And then when we came back, there was so much eclipse traffic. It was a 3-hour ride, but it turned into, I think, 9 hours. Like we got back at like 1:30 or 12:30 in the morning. And every time we kept telling the kids, hey, we're delayed another 2 hours, they just started they're like, yeah, like they loved the whole journey. And that's like the TNA student and parent in a nutshell, is just like they embrace the challenge and they embrace the journey and the adventure. And so, yeah, I'm just so grateful to be a part of this community of people who said, yeah, I want something different for my kid, or maybe I need something different for my kid. And then to just say yes to this school, it's humbling, and I'm grateful. And we've got some amazing people walking through those halls.
Well, and I know this community is also grateful to have you leading it. And, well, thanks. So if people want to find out more about Tennessee Nature Academy, get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so we have our website, TennesseeNatureAcademy.org. We have nothing super crazy, like a mailing list. Give us a call, send us an email. We are in the process of enrolling students for grades 5, 6, 7, and 8. We encourage anybody who thinks they might want to join to go ahead and apply, because what happens is we run a lottery in February, and we fill up. And if you wait till the spring to make a decision of whether you want to or not, if you haven't put that application in, it might be made for you. A lot of schools now, for example, they're transitioning at 5th grade instead of 4th grade. So there are a lot of families in 5th grade. This happened last year. It happened the year before, where families said, we're going to wait because we think seems like maybe there are spots open now. We'll wait and we'll join next year. And we fill up. And then there's a wait list, and they're so far down the wait list that we don't get to them. And I hate having that conversation with families, so I told myself, I'm going to tell everyone on the front end, if you think you want to join, go ahead and apply. And if you get a spot, just say yes. Like you won't regret it. We have open houses. You can see us for yourself. We have at least one open house a month. And so the best way is to go on our website, send us an email, fill out the application, and then somebody will be in touch with you and we'll invite you to the open house. We also have social media, Instagram and Facebook, that you can follow along.
Well, thanks, Jay. Thank you for leading. Thank you for what you do for kids and families in this community. Thank you for being an innovator in the education space. So
it's a pleasure to do so.
Thanks for listening to Back to the Whiteboard, powered by the Nashville Incubator. Learn how you can get involved in helping us reform education at tnincubator.org. And if you like this episode, please follow, rate, and review this show wherever you listen to your favorite podcast.